Misunderstood. That's the word that I hear most often from assistants all over the world about the way the assistant profession is viewed out there. And no doubt you've heard the expression, perception is reality. Well, I would agree with all of that. I am Bonnie Low-Kramen, and the subject I'd like to tackle today is exactly that, the perception of the EA role. Assistants say that leaders don't understand what assistants do, and assistants point to not being fully leveraged in their work. Assistants say that HR, human resources, also doesn't understand the role, and that we see that through overly generic and obsolete job descriptions. Clearly, there's a problem if the very people who are responsible for hiring assistants truly don't understand the role. It's time that we take a closer look at what's going on. I'd like to address three things: how we got to this place in history, how assistants themselves see the role, and finally, if we truly want to change the perception about assistants, how exactly can we do that? So there's a lot to unpack here. So first, let's talk about history. What's the history of the assistant role? The stereotype of the old-time secretary comes straight out of World War II, back in the 1940s and 50s. The men went off to war, and women were forced into the workplace, women of all ages. And who were their managers in those offices and factories but older men who did not go off to war for whatever reason? Starting to get the picture? The tasks that assistants did back in the day were the stereotypic filing, answering phones, typing correspondence. They were order takers and sometimes referred to as Girl Fridays, a questionable term, but referring to the wide range of skills that these women had to perform. These assistants were not highly paid. They were not really respected or considered very smart. They certainly were viewed as not deserving any training and were considered easily replaceable. They were bossed around and often looked towards as sex objects. Oh, and the best among them made a heck of a cup of coffee. Again, another stereotype, which has persisted to this day. Frustratingly so, some of these perceptions are with us in 2021, and it's in part due to the mass media. Think about fairly recent movies such as 9 to 5 and Working Girl and The Devil Wears Prada, and television shows like The Office. Those images and messages die very hard, so we have to really work hard to fight against them. So there's the history. Now, what is the reality? In 2021, what is really happening with this role? Assistants are the right arms to your executives. They're the backbones of companies. They're the face of the company culture. They work as executive business partners whose tasks have come a long way from being merely transactional and have moved into a strategic role. Oftentimes, assistants in 2021 are taking your seat at the leadership team table. The assistants of today are super smart. You have opinions, and you are often looked to for guidance and counsel. Executives would be hard-pressed to do without executive assistants today, and yet many assistants are underpaid and hold job titles that are not reflective of the work that they're actually doing. Executive assistants in 2021 need ongoing training. It's not an option anymore. And that does not necessarily mean a college degree, but it certainly means certifications and training that are specific to the role you're doing. It definitely is not one size fits all. What we're seeing are annual training budgets assigned to executive assistants. And in the corporate for-profit world, Right now, we're seeing approximately $5,000 per year in annual training budgets. Not for profit, it's less money. So that's the reality. Clearly, there is a gap between the obsolete stereotypes, which are over 70 years old. It's time to let them go. And there's a gap between that and the reality. So how do we bridge? How do we bridge that gap? If we really want to change how leaders and HR professionals and the world views assistants, how can we make that happen? I've come up with 8 steps that I feel would really contribute to some significant solutions in changing the perception of the EA role. 1, assistants can create their own written and accurate job descriptions and propose a job title that makes sense. After all, who understands what you do better than you? Make the job description as detailed as possible and keep it updated. Share it with your leaders and HR so they have an ongoing and accurate picture of what you do. 2, get paid fairly by asking HR for a pay evaluation among your role and proceed to have a fact-based conversation about compensation and your career path and progression at the company. To do this builds respect as you treat yourself as a business who is providing a valuable service to your executives and the company. 3, insist on getting the training you know you need. Many companies have training dollars available that they do not widely advertise, so please ask about it. Make your professional development a high priority as a way to change perception of the role. 4, part of breaking down the old stereotypes of the not so smart secretary is to be the change you wish to see. Look and sound the way you want to be perceived. And that includes in person, over video conference, and on social media. First impressions matter. And this is especially important for women. I'm going to say it. There is a double standard between men and women are judged far more closely and frankly harshly about our appearance and speech than men are. Let us do everything we can to not perpetuate the old stereotypes. We do that by taking responsibility for our personal brands. 5, most every assistant agrees that words matter. They matter a lot. So let's not refer to ourselves as the girls in the office. That's a diminishing term. And let's not refer to our leaders as our boss, which is a derogatory and racist term. Boss, the word boss comes from the Dutch word baas, B-A-A-S, which translates to the word master, as in master and slave. 6, be present in your email, in your executive's email signature. I'm going to stop and go back. 6, be present in your executive's email signature. Your name and contact information should appear there along with his or hers in the email signature. And that sends a very powerful message to any recipient of an email from your executive. I certainly have my assistant in my email signature, and many people choose to contact Jen versus me as the first person to contact. 7, be visible and speak up. Show up at meetings, ask to be there if you're not invited, have opinions, participate, ask questions that are relevant to the conversation. And 8, the company website and printed materials. Closely review all of these materials that use language about the administrative staff. And that includes, the language on the careers tab on a website. If you think that the words need to be altered or revised to more accurately reflect the respect and value for the role and the company culture, then don't hesitate to propose a revision. The bottom line is that assistants need to step up and take proactive action to change the perception of the role if we believe it needs to change. Clearly, I do believe it needs to change. When perceptions change, then salaries will improve, as will the overall respect level and understanding of the role. It's time. It's been more than 70 years. I'm fond of saying that you can't be it if you can't see it. Let's help the world see what is real about the assistant profession. It's time. Thank you. I'm Bonnie Low-Kramen. For information on Be the Ultimate Assistant training programs, workshops, speaking, please visit betheultimateassistant.com. Thank you.